We take everything for granted as time goes on. Every generation does. They have their own separate indoctrination, and you're updated. Every generation is updated. Actually, it's every few years now with kindergarten, updated into the big changes which those children will grow up into and experience in their lifetimes with the big changes already planned. They call it progressiveness, you see. It's progressive education for the progressive society, but no one ever defines who decides what progressive is. It's very old. It's centuries old, in fact, and there are definitely organizations that work towards this. So I tied together, I show you how private foundations came out of it all too, to help run the world, their way, of course, and they were comprised of the richest folk on the planet at the time, the richest international moneylenders, the ones who lent to whole nations, and still do it today, in fact, many of the families, and how they set their private foundations, and they can hire, and they have hired thousands of non-governmental organizations which lobby government, and it works with government, in fact, because government's only too happy to receive them and put the laws forward and stamp them as approved, and then they say the people have spoken. Of course, the people haven't spoken because you don't elect the NGOs, these non-governmental organizations. You don't get to vote on foundations running your lives, and these foundations are across the whole world now, all connected together on the same course. They advise all governments, in fact, of policies, all kinds of policies to do social policy and foreign policies and so on, and financial policies. And this has been this way for an awful long time, 100 years now. So we're in a system which is a good guise of what they call democracy, and which is nonsense altogether, in fact. And you're run by a form of plutocracy, you might say, that's been here for an awful long time. And they're training you now to go into an authoritarian society. That's what it's all about. It's training. And it's the best way to do it. That's what they call terrorism, the war on terror, war on drugs, war on everything else. And constant wars get you trained to simply obey as government expands into more agencies that control your lives. This is an old plan written about back in 1700s, in fact, even before the French Revolution. And we're here today, and most of it's been implemented already. And the public are confused. They think they must be protected because that's a big mantra. We're going to protect you by taking all your rights away. And the public simply accept it. They're very confused and so on. So help yourself to cuttingthroughthematrix.com. You'll learn how it all works together, how long it's been here, who's behind it, and so on, where they're taking you to, and how they play with you. Something they understand awfully well is you. They have your constant updates from your websites and your chats and phones and all the rest of it. They've got all they need to know about you, and you update it yourself as you go through changes in your own life, in fact. And that's added to your personality profile instantly, all automatically. And they have a rundown on you. They can even play games on you with the Pentagon, and I've read the articles from the Pentagon before where they have virtual us, all of us, in their systems, and they run games to see how you'd react in a virtual world, giving real life situations, and they say it's very, very accurate. You would actually behave that way in real life. So this is how far it's gone. Total control of society by controlling every single person, and we're pretty well there today. We're pretty well there. So remember too, you can help me take along at cuttingthroughthematrix.com by helping buy the books and discs, and donating as well, because I don't bring on big sponsors and big advertisers. This is not a big business, and I don't intend it to be either, because I don't even get anything that's big and still have credulity and honesty as well. It can't happen. Too many forces will lean on you because you're then beholden to them for money, for advertising, or whatever happens to be. And so you have to sway your way and sway your mind to accommodate all of that. That's just the way life happens to be. So you can help me take along if you buy the books and discs at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. And from the US to Canada, don't forget you can still use personal checks or international postal money orders from the post office. You can send cash or use PayPal. Across the world, you've got Western Union, MoneyGram, and PayPal once again. Now, and straight donations, as I say, are awfully welcome as we go through, because it's awfully expensive to keep all these sites up. And the reason there's so many sites up is because even with so-called unlimited uploading, I've been cut off many times by the big boys, and I've had to get more and more sites until we sort out their mistakes, which are deliberate mistakes, actually. There's many ways to dissuade you from doing things, and believe you me, they play them all. But we live in a controlled society. It's been that way my whole life, and my parents' life too. They didn't know. I did. And I knew from a very early age simply by the books I was reading at very good libraries back in Britain. And very old books too, even from the 1700s, that gave you history at the time. And even old newspapers, by the way, some of them collected newspapers in those old libraries. And if you're awfully lucky, you could get to read through them. And it was fascinating to see the complete difference in the history of, say, Scotland and England as opposed to what you get today. Which is total nonsense, actually. That's what it's replaced it all with. And so history's always being modified, and we live through an age of complete modification. In fact, reality's changed in your life many, many times over to do with the past. Even the recent past can be changed so quickly. It's so easy now with all electronic data because it goes down the memory hole. They scrub the original sites clean. You won't find any trace of so many articles, even if you keep it and save it for yourself, which is all you can really do. But this happens all the time because I go through Link Checker here every so often to see if all the old links are still working, and you're constantly finding the ones that brought them out are gone, and they've scrubbed them, so you have to search elsewhere for the links that other papers or whatever have copied, and it's an ongoing battle. It's so easy to do. There's no hard copies of anything anymore pretty well. And this was all designed and talked about before we were given the internet, how it all play along and work in the favour of those that already ruled. And we are ruled. For folks who don't know it, we are ruled. We don't have elected people at all. The presidents and prime ministers in all the so-called democratic countries for 100 years have all belonged to the one organisation. And that was the Royal Institute for International Affairs, also called Council on Foreign Relations in other countries outside the UK. They have their branches across the whole world, and they are on board with the same policies. They create policies for governments. They even put their own people into government at the top. It doesn't matter about the ones at the bottom. They're allowed free competition, and that's according to their own historian at the Council on Foreign Relations. That was Professor Carol Quigley, who was in charge of their archives and their histories as well. The reason they have archives there is because they have a different version of history. They have all, what we're given as history, but they have all the blacked out bits filled in, the reasons why things really happen, who benefits, of course, financially and all the rest of it, and so on and so on. So we're given rubbish to read and discuss. A lot of indoctrination goes in with it too. And again, don't forget that most of your indoctrination, apart from getting it from the news, it's very minimalistic from the news, very simplistic stuff, that's standard propaganda, but it also comes from entertainment. If you look at how many movies the US has churned out with Pentagon funding, with the military involved, or FEMA saving us all from meteors, or whatever it happens to be, it's just incredible. Hundreds and hundreds of them to make you think that that's what these agencies are all there for. But also training you to simply obey, just like in the movies, when they come out in force, for you to save you all, of course, and you simply do what you're told, and you jump when they tell you to jump, because they care about you. Back with more after this. Hi folks, we're back cutting through the matrix, talking about propaganda, and we're bombarded with it all the time. Most folk they think they know what propaganda is, but they only know little bits of how it works, because there's a lot more to propaganda and the art of controlling the masses than simply lying to the general public. You're trained through it. You're trained constantly. And I was talking to someone just the other day there who mentioned about the Boston bombings and how they keep pulling up the same young woman with the story of she was going to be a dancer or something. She lost her leg, and they keep going through getting a prosthesis and artificial leg. How brave she is, and it was done. Always done in this mushy way that you get they call it breakfast news in the US, where they love these human interest stories, and everybody's almost crying, of course, and it's put across in a certain way. But you see, remember too, and I'm not saying it was fake, but you can actually put a lot of fake things over in the same way too, because you're preconditioned to react when you see something like that and fall right into it. You're already conditioned with the formula. And everything boils down to formula, you understand? And that's how you train people for propaganda, is by setting propaganda formulas in their mind. And as soon as the proper buttons are pressed in the same controlled format of presentation, you'll fall right into it and you'll swallow anything you're told to swallow. It's very, very simple. And Jack C. Lull goes on about propaganda. I've mentioned him many times, and he's probably done some of the best in-depth studies on it, at least for the general population, as opposed to simply those at the top who actually do it as a science with the neuroscientists and behaviourists and all that. Thousands of them work for all governments, many governments, and the think tanks too. But anyway, you've got to remember too that repetition from all the media at the same time on the same topics, quoting the same things, is very important as well. Even if some of them take the step of quoting the same things, and then they'll pretend near the end of the story they're not quite sure if they go along with it or not. But they've already quoted the same things. That's the important part, you understand, before they pick it apart. And it says here, this is what Lull said, that to make the organisation of propaganda possible, the media must be concentrated, the number of news agencies reduced, the press brought under single control, and radio film monopolies are established. Well, Hollywood was a monopoly when it started. It came out and was functioning very, very quickly. In fact, multi-billions of dollars way back then, in fact, because it's so important to control the minds of the general public, especially for changes that was planned. But it says effects will still be greater if the various media are concentrated in the same hands. And that was from the formation of men's attitudes on propaganda. But it says, Stalinist propaganda was in great measure founded on Pavlov's theory of the conditioned reflex. Hitlerian propaganda was in great measure founded on Freud's theory of repression and libido. American propaganda is founded in great measure on John Dewey's theory of teaching. So you're going to understand what Dewey was all about too, and learn as much as you can about the man, because he put out the whole agenda for the US indoctrination system. They sent them out all over the world, by the way, the same kind of Dewey from the same place. And it also says each medium is particularly suited to a certain type of propaganda. The movies and human contacts are the best media for sociological propaganda in terms of social climate. Slow infiltration. Slow infiltration because in a movie you think you're being entertained, your firewall's down. You're not suspicious about anything. And there's techniques to get you hooked. There's many hooks in a movie. So even if it's a bad movie, you'll watch it to the end if the right hooks are there. This is progressive inroads and overall integration. Public meetings and posters are more suitable for tools for providing shock propaganda, intense but temporary, leading to immediate action. The press tends more shape more general views. Radio is likely to be an instrument of international action and psychological warfare, whereas the press is used domestically. Direct propaganda aimed at modifying opinions and attitudes must be preceded by propaganda that is sociological in character. Sociological propaganda can be compared to ploughing. Direct propaganda is to sowing, and you cannot do one without doing the other first. So you've got to prepare the field, basically, before you start sowing the seeds and all the rest of it for propaganda. It's a whole bunch of, it's a big science in itself, propaganda. And also, you find that it says propaganda must also furnish an explanation for all happenings. All happenings. Very simplistic again. Doesn't matter how complicated things are or how many players appear to be involved in things. It must be very simplistic. That's why when they give you lies, weapons of mass destruction, they don't go into it in any detail, because if they do, there's too many holes will open up. They could be attacked. So you keep it very simplistic, even if it appears stupid to some people. And it says a key to understanding the whys and the reasons for economic and political developments. We're always given these all the time, as though money were some kind of exact science. It's a big con, folks. It's always